If you haven't heard about menopause and skin, you're living under a rock. Today, we're talking about how menopause changes skin, and maybe not your skin, but your 40 plus clients' skin, and what you can do to better support them. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Darine, brand and content strategist and former esthetician.
And I'm Suzanne, Sedesca certified esthetician with over 30 years, former spa owner, and now educator mentor to beauty pros.
So today, Suzanne, we're talking about a subject that is everywhere. It's in all my feed and everywhere I turn, which is perimenopause and menopause. Uh, if our listeners or viewers are maybe under the age of 40, they may not be getting this information actually, because perimenopause is basically starts in your early 40s, right?
hmm
And then from there, we get into menopause. And like everything that happens to us women, it's going to affect our skin. But before we get kind of really into what happens to the skin, uh, maybe we can just talk a little bit more about what menopause is so that it's just a little easier for our listeners to
hmm
understand.
So I know a lot of people say, oh, it can happen earlier than 40. Fun fact, it's only 1% are affected under 40. So it's not as big as what people think it is. It could be the beginning for sure, starting it, maybe just hovering it, especially if you've had kids, things like that, hormone imbalances. But it's typically that 40 to 44. And when people look at it, it's after you've stopped menstruating for 12 months, then you're considered. That's their scientific
Right.
definition, I guess you could say.
So I just want to clarify a little
Mhm,
bit. So there's the term perimenopause, and perimenopause is actually the things that happen to you before you go into menopause.
mhm,
And in perimenopause, which usually typically starts in your early 40s, you start to notice some changes, but you're still getting your period. It might be a little bit more irregular. And you might start to notice the changes in your skin in perimenopause. But menopause itself is like a moment in time. It's like the day that it's been 12 months since you've had your period.
mhm,
And I think anything after that day is called post-menopause. But I think in general speaking, sometimes people talk about menopause is a umbrella term that includes perimenopause, menopause, and
mhm,
postmenopause. And I think for the sake of this episode, if we're saying menopause, we are using it in that broad term to include perimenopause and postmenopause as well, just
mhm,
because it's easier, um, because the changes that are happening, they kind of go all the way through. And menopause can last up to 10 years. So if you're not in your 40s, this is something to look forward to.
So exciting for you guys.
Yay!
But it's true because then if you understand this, for especially for skincare technicians or body care technicians, the skin is the biggest part that's impacted with everything else. But it's really understanding what happens because so many people say, I don't know what happened this year. It was like, boom, it just hit. Everything's falling apart. My body, my skin, my hair, my nails. Um, and that's when they awaken to see it. But it really, like you said, did start sooner. It's just a very slow process. And then I feel like you just fall off a cliff and you get up and go, what happened? How'd that happen? It's kind of what it
Yeah.
feels like. I think. Um, but really, it's that the big thing of it all is the decrease of estrogen that happens. And then it's a very
Mhm.
slow decline. And then all of a sudden it could be, medical procedures, it could be medication, it could be a lot of things that cause it to just, it's ended drastically like that. But then we
Mhm.
know when that happens, it decreases lots of things, but we're talking skin, it's going to decrease your elastin collagen production, so that's where you're going to start to see the firmness start to loosen a lot quicker. And that ends up being just body wise. Like
Mhm.
people, it's not
All
just the
over.
skin,
Yeah.
it's the face. People start to notice, oh my, what's going on with my
Mhm.
neck or the back of my arms or my tummy, my inner thighs, or there's like this decrease of elasticity and you see a little more wrinkles. It looks like
Sagging.
dehydration, sagginess, yeah, thinner skin, maybe more
Mm,
sensitive, like the cheeks are a little more sensitive than you've ever had in your
mhm.
life, right? It's all of a sudden, why am I so rosy? There's a lot of things, the dryness, the dehydration.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things.
Also, hyperpigmentation and acne
Yeah.
because, why not pick you when you're down? But I think too, like this is important to note for any service provider, because if you're a wax tech and your older clients come in, they're going to have thinner, drier skin. You need to take precautions.
Hmm.
You need to make sure you're holding that skin real nice and tight,
Hmm.
maybe a bit more than your younger clients, but also like ensuring you're avoiding lifting and all
And
that.
then the sensitivity,
And
right? They can all of a sudden become more sensitive. Like
yeah,
I've had people reach out saying, I've been waxing my client for years and now she's red. Her legs are red. What's going on? And I said, how old is she? I
yeah,
always ask, is there hormone changes happening? What's going on with her? And that's why
mhm,
we brought this topic up because it does reflect
yeah.
the whole beauty industry, all services, really.
And one thing we talked about was, I don't think any of us have on the intake form, are you in perimenopause? Have you, maybe you do, I don't know. But a lot of times, if you um, have an age or a birth date
Hmm.
for your client, you can kind of guess their age. Depending on how long you've been with your client or your client has been with you, there could be that established relationship and rapport where you can start asking
Hmm.
questions. Um, I think at that point, your clients will ask you questions too, being like, I've been noticing my skin's like a
Hmm.
lot more sensitive or a lot drier. And then obviously, we're not doctors and can't
Right.
prescribe, but you can just, bring it up as have you thought of, perimenopause or menopause?
I actually always brought it up. It was a conversation because of hormone changes.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
affects everything. Like you said, waxing, the skin, for sure. Hair growth, there's a lot of factors
Hmm.
involved, right? Um, if you, but it's a way you can ask to say, because you know the birth date of the person. So if they're in their late 30s, early 40s, I said, how have you been feeling? Anything changing? How's the hormone levels? Like, are you sleeping well? Just ask those things because then it could affect, or it could be why there's the breakouts or reactions with products,
Yeah.
or and some will just say, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely going through menopause right now." It's like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
so what have you experienced? How's your products at home? Can you do the same thing? What about your hair? Like, ask those
Hmm.
questions because those are all the more information you have a little bit about without being abrasive into it, especially if you just met the person. Is just ask a few questions. You ask permission.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask you a few more questions? Just so I make the
Yeah.
right choices.
Right, because some of these can be misdiagnosed as seasonal changes, like especially dryness
Yeah.
and sensitivity and stuff like that,
Hmm.
right? So it is important to just know in your head, in your own mind, and for your client, but does it, whether it's seasonal or hormone related, does that change how we treat or what services we would provide our client?
You would think yes.
Why don't you tell us? How?
Yes, it would. So I always like, especially when you've had a client for a long time or quite a while, the worst thing we can do is assume you did something on them years ago that you can still do today because it
Hmm.
changes everything. So if they're starting to notice changes like this, again, we're not doctors. Have you been diagnosed by the doctor with this yet? Or get that information that you can. Otherwise, you start off basic level again because you don't want to irritate their skin. So you start off with that low intensity. Think of it like you're not going to go all crazy on them, especially if they told you they've been noticing these things. We don't know if it's
Hmm.
menopause or premenopause. We don't, not sure, right? And sometimes the doctors will just look at and say, yeah, you're not there. You're too young for that. And they just shoo them away. But yet, as we know, it can be 10 years of this change without
Hmm.
it really being medically diagnosed, right?
Also, that's a note is that you can't medically it's hard to medically diagnose if you're in
Yes.
perimenopause because of the change in estrogen
Yeah.
levels.
Unless they did
So,
hormone actual testing and stuff,
yeah,
right? Then they
which
know.
they're not going to do because
They're not probably
that
going to do it.
most people won't, like we should say most people won't have that done. So really it's just a conversation that I think we know our own bodies
Hmm.
and your client. especially if you've been seeing them, they're going to be
Mhm.
sharing. Trust me, they are going to
They're going to
tell you.
share. Like sometimes I'll say, hey, so what about genetically? Like, did your mom go through it at a certain age? An aunt and, like cousin, sister, whatever it may be. Is there someone you can kind of see that the chances are probably that's what's happening to you too? So then
Mhm.
just take it back to, okay, let's look at the barrier of the skin. Let's look at the hydration because those are key to make sure they stay stable and strong barrier, good hydration, good lipid barrier level in the skin. So you're starting out simple, right? I mean, that should be the start point of almost all skincare because then everything else will come along very well and you get better results with. But basically, hydration, facial, hydrating products like your hyaluronic acids or help with the plumping, maintain that health of the skin. When it comes to exfoliation, it's like, you were doing 3 times a week. Let's just cut it back so your skin doesn't get irritated. Let's try 2 times a week. Maybe you do an enzyme
Mhm.
peel instead of a granule or your salicylics that you have in cleansers. You have to start looking at how to scale back a little bit so it doesn't have that big, oh my God, this isn't working. I've got big changes happening from that last treatment, right? LEDs are great, your red light, your infrareds, like those are always a great add-on to I don't mean upsell them, I'm just saying in the treatment itself.
Mhm.
Um, you know, have you looked at lymphatic drainage in your massage techniques, or do they do gouaches at home, to help with the soothing and calming side of things? So that
Yeah.
low intensity, think of that first step, and then you can kind of start seeing, especially if they did have a big change in skin, because all of a sudden it happens. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. This first winter, it's like I'm dry, I'm cracking. It can be that drastic all of a sudden. And they're not
Mhm.
necessarily been diagnosed that they are in menopause, right? And it's okay to not think that you have to go to that advanced level of treatments. It's like, okay, let's scale it back a bit. Let's just make sure. And you tell them why behind it. So really you're thinking about, um, alternatives to retinols that act like a retinol, but not irritating like a retinol. Um, it
With products that are you talking about like
Ingredients.
products that are going to complement your low intensity
Yeah, yeah.
treatments for
Or
your
you're
yeah.
using it on them too. I think that
Right.
is very hard for us that as professionals, we feel like, okay, you're at a medium level peel. We can't go back down. Like I've had that conversation
Mhm.
with people. I said, why can't you? Why can't you just ease off and go back to that base level? Why do we think we have to keep doing more and more and more and more to get results? It's not necessarily the case, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And I think though
mhm.
there is on that like there is pressure from clients because they're noticing the changes and they want firm skin and they want so it can be that pressure
Mhm.
um coming from clients, but if you explain why and that we're going to get there, we're just going to
Yeah.
take a different
Let's just
route.
try this
um
first. And then next time, let's
yeah.
look at, at home, you're going to switch and do this now with your products. Let's change your regime
Mhm.
up a little bit. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily you're selling them anything new. Maybe you just got to change it a little bit. And then
Hmm.
maybe the next time you can see if the skin can tolerate more things, a medium intensity. And that's when you can get into your mandelic acids or some chemical peels, I guess you could say, like, but think of sensitive still and not for a long
Hmm.
period of time. I would still consider it just base level and see how they start responding to it. Maybe it's
There was
microcurrents.
also the before
Mhm.
you get any further
Yeah.
into medium intensity, I think with the low intensity in replacing the retinol, right? Because a lot of clients are going to want retinol
Yes. Yes.
because we've heard and heard and heard that, that's the thing to use. Um, there's a natural alternative to retinol that's a little
Hmm.
gentler on the
It's
skin.
been it's coming out in the last, I'd say probably this year is when I've noticed it coming out. And some brands are now focusing their whole one line just around this too. And I don't know if I'm
Hmm.
going to say it right, but it's the bakuchiol. Did I say it right, Darine?
Yeah, I'll put it up on the screen. Yeah, bakuchiol.
Bakuchiol.
Uh,
Yeah, it's a natural, from a plant that's natural, and it acts like a retinol without the irritation of it. It's kind of like when people
mhm.
go, "Oh, I really want glycolic," but well, it's an AHA, but you can do a PHA instead. You don't have the same reactiveness of it. So sometimes if you explain to them, hey, listen, I know you love your retinols, but right now we just got to park that. Let's try this because we know it won't irritate, and you're still going to get, the firmness
Yeah.
results, like the wrinkles. You're still going to get those outcomes, but you just got to switch the ingredient a little bit too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This is why it's so amazing that, this industry, there's always something new. There's always research and all this stuff that's always coming out. So it's good to kind of keep your
Yeah.
finger on the pulse
Well,
of, I don't
this
know
is
what
why
the saying is,
education's
but just to kind
important
of,
to keep
yeah,
going.
know what's
Yeah.
coming and what's out there so that you
Mhm.
can also better serve your
Or
clients.
maybe you're fortunate enough that you're with a brand that they come out every year with something a little bit different
Yeah.
and it's more improved, different ingredients. So they start looking at it. And the thing is, too, is that people are wanting more, I don't want to say natural, but that holistic side instead of it being machines and chemicals and all this harsh stuff to
Hmm.
the face. They're looking at more the holistic, the lymphatic drainage, the guashes, the softer
Yeah.
ingredients, less irritants, that type of thing. So
Hmm.
I think that's why you're
I think,
seeing more of that switch too.
yeah. Because that goes more with the instead of anti-aging, we're
Yeah.
pro-aging.
Hmm.
It's like just aging. We know we're aging, but let's,
Slow it down.
let's not fight
Slow
it.
it
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. It's inevitable.
Hmm. Um, yeah, and then if they're ready for that medium, as I was getting into, that's where you think again, like I said, the mild chemical peels, microcurrents for the firmness, ultrasonic or radio frequency is really great, non-aggressive,
Mhm.
nothing too much. Your ingredients, like a lot of the ingredients you can use throughout, but you just want to watch for intensity. So niacinamide, I mean, has had a big shout out in the last couple years for sure. That is anti-inflammatory, it's brightening, it strengthens the barrier of the skin. There's calming
We've done a
agents.
whole episode on it.
Yes, yes, you did. Think of calming agents, your allantones and your panthenols, like that type of thing, Visibola. Because when you start adding intensity, you want to bring the calm to it too. So you're kind of like
Mhm.
have the skin not react to this intense. It's like, oh, here, I'm going to do this, but now we'll just add this to calm it down again,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of that back and forth again. Ceramides are really great too, right? Because basically they're critical for the barrier of the skin as well. If you're going to get into advanced, this is case by case. Sometimes you're going to see it on a medical side potentially, or general microneedling of what we can do as estheticians at our level. But you still want to look at you know afterwards to calm that skin down. Don't allow it to be,
Mhm.
yes, you're going to be pink because we just stimulate circulation, that type of thing, but it shouldn't be that they're pink for days and red hot. And if you haven't been paying attention of the changes of microneedling in this last year, you need to get out there, start looking. Actually, you can go on a blog that Beauty Cult Canada put out not long ago about it. There's a lot of changes with the microneedling, and they're discovering a lot more things that what we should do and what we shouldn't do or why we
I'll
do.
link that in the description.
Yeah, exactly. Then the medical side, laser rejuvenation, like all those types of things for sure, medium depth chemical peels, but that's if they have a very strong barrier, healthy barrier, thicker skin. As we get
Hmm.
older, you tend to have a thinner skin. So just because you could have medium peels in your 30s, that doesn't mean you can have them in your 50s. So you have to educate your clients and help them understand it's good because we're giving you what your skin needs today. It's not what you got 20 years ago or 10 years ago or even 5
Yeah.
years ago. But again, I'm always about the calming agent just to kind of fool the skin to say, just calm down, it's okay. We got it. We're gonna relax, we're gonna hydrate, we're gonna soothe, make sure we didn't do anything to the barriers. So some peptides, ceramides, that type of thing, right? I think if that's why we look at it, how do we re-calm the skin down?
Mhm.
Like my goal is always that any treatment I do, if I can help it, they're not leaving hot red face, especially if they're
Right. Yeah.
menopause. They don't want to have a red hot face when they're done because sometimes they have hot flashes. So if they have the hot flashes and you're already red, they're going to get hotter and redder. So
Yeah.
that's why we want to try to look at bringing things down. a little bit
Mhm.
more calming effect in that. Yeah,
That makes sense. I love it. I mean, and again, I think it might not be happening to you,
it's
but this
coming.
is it's gonna but you can be aware of it and to help your clients, and also that curiosity and problem solving when it comes to supporting your
Hmm.
clients. If you have any questions for us or suggestions for topics in the future, let us know. We're always open to suggestions. Thanks so much for listening.